Our scripture today is Luke 18, verses 9 to 14. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying this: God, I thank you that I am not like the other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. The word of the Lord.
So this is how many people have ever heard the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector praying? Has anyone ever heard this one? Yeah, some of us. It's a fairly I don't know the word, famous, well-known parable. So the idea here is that Jesus tells this parable. There's a Pharisee, and the tax collector. They go into the temple, they're praying. The Pharisee's like, man, I'm so glad, God, that I got it figured out, and that I tithe, and I give, and I help people, and I fast, and I do all. Thank God I'm not like other people, like this tax collector over here. So there's that prayer, and then the tax collector. We have this prayer. He won't even look up towards heaven. He keeps his head bowed, like in this kind of a humbling attitude, and God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And then the end kind of tag phrase is that that man, the tax collector, goes home justified, and not the other, because whoever humbles themselves will be exalted by God, and whoever exalts themselves will be humbled by God. Pretty interesting scene here. And so I was reading a few articles. I found this one that I really, really love. This by a doctor and a theologian, and I've got his name up. I'll get it to you here in a minute. I can't remember right now. So, anyways, but really a fascinating story, because the parable is kind of sandwiched in between two statements, and this theologian believes that how do we know what this parable is? Because the parable as a standalone is just this. It's just Jesus is telling a parable. He gives the prayer of the tax collector, gives a prayer of the Pharisee, and that's it. That's all we really know of the parable. There are tag phrases kind of at the beginning, at the end, that are actually by the writer of Luke. That the writer of Luke is giving context to this parable. So, Richard, go to the next. I've got my my paintings that I like to show. This is literally one of the only paintings ever done of the Pharisee and the tax collector. It's by James Tissot, around 1886 or 1894, somewhere in that area. They don't know exactly, but there is the Pharisee you see in the front, with his hands up and his head up, and then there's the tax collector whose head is bowed and is kind of standing behind the column, hiding himself a little bit here. And so the writer of this article that I read is really interesting, because he's saying if you look at these two prayers without the tag phrases, we really might not know what the whole point of the parable is. So the author of Luke is wanting us to capture some things and notice some things out of this parable, right? So it's interesting that it's not Jesus that says these little things, it's the writer of Luke. Jesus is just giving this parable, right? And so the last part is this idea that if you humble yourself, then God will take care of you. God will exalt you. But if you are proud and arrogant, then God is not for that kind of attitude. That God's not on our side, if you will. God will actually humble us, is what the little kind of proverbial phrase is that, if you humble yourself, God exalts. If you exalt yourself, God humbles. That's a little tag phrase there. So then, even with that statement, we don't necessarily know, because let me just say that if you go throughout the Hebrew Bible, there are all kinds of places where the prayers are, God, help us to be holy, help us to be righteous, help us to be not like the other people in the world, help us not to be like. So there's all these prayers where it seems like what this Pharisee is saying is not really necessarily a kind of a standalone bad prayer. It's something that's in the history of the Jewish faith. There's all kinds of prayers that talk about help me to stay set aside, consecrated, holy, like you are holy. So, because I don't want to be like people who are unholy and unrighteous and unjust. Are you with me? So it's not really necessarily this horrible prayer. And let's just be honest, when we see this thing, it says, well, those who humble themselves will be exalted by God. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled by God. We don't know if the tax collector who is saying, God, forgive me, I'm just a sinner. Have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. That seems like a humbling statement, right? But do we know that the tax collector actually changed anything about his life when he left? Are you with me? Like, humbling is not just performative. Hello? Is anyone else here? Is it just me in Princess Peach? What's going on? Humbling ourselves is not what we do when we show up and we perform. It is how we actually live out our lives. So when the tax collector says, God, have mercy on me, I'm just a sinner. Well, we don't know. I mean, honestly, let's just be honest. The Pharisee's prayer that he fasts twice a week and then he tithes and then he does this stuff, those are things that God asked for God's children to do. Are you with me? So it sounds in a weird way maybe like it's not humble, but really everything that he's doing in the prayer that he says he's doing is humbling himself before God and doing what God wants him as a Pharisee to do. The writer of the article I read said it's that first phrase, that first little tag phrase that we have at the beginning before we get into the parable that helps us put into context all of this stuff that's happening in these little quick verses. And it says this, I'm going to read it specifically so I don't mess it up. This is the writer of Luke saying this. Jesus told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and they regarded others with contempt. All right, so that little phrase helps us read the rest of this parable in context. Luke is telling us that, okay, here's what happened. Jesus was talking one day, he was teaching, he was preaching, whatever you want to say. There's all these people that were around, and let me give you a context. He told this parable about a Pharisee and a tax collector praying in the temple on the same day. But before you read this parable, I want you to understand that what Jesus was doing was pointing out to some in the crowd, they felt like they were righteous and justified in their actions and in their lives. And they also, along with this kind of arrogance, this egotistical kind of attitude, not only that, but they regarded others with contempt. Are you with me? So now when we read these two prayers, in the context that Luke is setting us up for, he's like, I want you to read and listen to these words. of this parable in the context that some are very arrogant in their religion. And not only are they arrogant, but they also they detest other people. So then we see this Pharisee parable. God, thank you that I've done all these things. Now that I know that first tag phrase, I'm reading that prayer with a haughty kind of arrogant kind of tone. Aren't you? Like you say, like, God, thank God that I am so awesome, that I am so amazing, that I fast twice a week, that I give to the poor, that I tithe, and I do all that, and that I'm not like other people, like this disgusting tax collector. The arrogance and the detesting of others. Are you with me? And then you see the tax collector. You have this tax collector, head bowed, and he's saying, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. We still don't know what happened if the tax collector went home. I mean, it's a parable, right? It's not a true story. It's a teaching tool. We don't know what the tax collector did, if he changed his ways, if he was like Zacchaeus, who came down from the tree and Jesus had dinner with him, and Zacchaeus, as the tax collector, said, I'm going to go back. I've robbed people, and I'm going to go back and give back to everyone that I've stolen from. We don't know if that's what the tax collector decided to do. All we know is that he humbled himself, yes. And it says that Jesus says that man, the tax collector, went home justified, went home with God's blessing on his life because of the way that he decided to humble himself and not regard others with detest. So that's what's happening here. What's interesting to me is that one of the most famous. So let me back up. What the writer of this, and I'll get to it here in just a minute, but what the writer is arguing for, what the writer of the article, not the writer of Luke, what the writer of the article I read is arguing for is this, is that what Luke is trying to do in this story is extremely important to the whole agenda of what Luke's theology is. And that is the theology of the love of neighbor, the love of other. Luke, it's interesting that it's only in the gospel, according to Luke, that we have the story of the Good Samaritan. Did you guys know that? It's not in all the other gospels. It's only found in Luke. And does anyone remember the story of the Good Samaritan? Anyone? No one. Princess Peach? No one? No one. God help us. So the Good Samaritan, right? There's a person that's on the side of the road that is a Jewish person, has been beaten and left for dead and robbed and all that stuff. And then the Levite comes by and the priest comes by and they walk around on the other side to avoid this person that's in need. And then a Samaritan person who is a massive enemy of Jewish people. There's not love between Jews and Samaritans, and the Samaritan sees this Jewish person, picks them up, takes care of them, binds up their wounds, and takes them into town. Gives his credit card and says, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for a little bit, but when I come back, anything that he needs, anything, just put it on my tab, and I'll pay for it when I get back." And then Jesus asks. He says, who do you think is the neighbor in that story? And the person said, well, the person who took care of the person in need. That is one of the, that's like, if you're a preacher, a teacher, or a comedian, that's your closer, right? The closer is the Good Samaritan story. If you want to tell people what the heart of God is, it's you can look religious like a Levite, you can look holy like a priest, but a lot of times we walk on the other side of the road. It's too much to take care of people that are in need, that are that close to me in proximity, and yet the Samaritan takes care of the Jewish person. The love of neighbor. And having a Jewish crowd having to say that the good neighbor is a Samaritan was was an intense indictment on the heart of people who exalted themselves and thought that they were better than others. So what happens here is that Luke, along with the Good Samaritan story and other places, he is now bringing this idea of loving your neighbor is the thing that puts us closest to being like God. That the godly, the truly connected to the divine are the people that care deeply for every neighbor. Those are the people that God looks at and says, that's a person that's living in the heart of the divine. That's a person that cares. So it's not about, am I tithing? Am I fasting? Am I doing all the things? Am I saying all the stuff? Am I praying the right prayer? No. Are you helping? How do you regard others? That's really the bottom line of this parable. That's what Luke is trying to get across in this parable. Is like, listen to these prayers and tell me who is the one that is arrogant and who is the one that detests others. And we read the parable and we're like, oh, the Pharisees off base here, right? Because the whole push is to take care of those in need. So let's go to the next one here in Luke 10. This is where we find the Good Samaritan. What is written in the law then? What do you read there? You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And, say it with me, your neighbor as yourself. And then Jesus said to him, you've given the right answer. Do this, and you will live. What is the greatest law? And I love this. It's to love God and to love your neighbor. Notice Jesus doesn't argue at all. He's like, that's it. That's it. Do that. Do that, and that's life. Do that, and your own soul is revived as you are giving life away to others in need. Are you with me? That this is the heart of everything that is the Hebrew scripture and that is the Christian scripture. This is the heart of it. To love God. And how do we love God? Love our neighbor. And then in the next one, go to the next slide. Again, later in Luke 10. Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? And he said, I love this. He couldn't even say the word Samaritan. He just said, I guess the one who showed him mercy. You ever get called out and you're like, ooh, boy. Who's the one that was a neighbor? The one who showed mercy. And Jesus then said to him, say it with me, go and do likewise. What is the heart of the teaching of the gospel, of the life of Jesus, and what is the heart of God? And that is to love others. There's another place where it says, well, who is my neighbor? And this is that is the response, is the Good Samaritan is the response to who is my neighbor. Everyone in the world is your neighbor. Let me say this real fast. Loving your neighbor and caring for, giving to, helping your neighbor does not mean that you agree with their politics. Come on. It doesn't mean that you support their policy. What it means is that we choose love over violence. We choose to care for even the ones that are not caring for us. Again, listen. It does not mean that we don't go into the streets and protest. right? It doesn't mean that we don't stand up for rights of people who are being marginalized. But what it means is that even as we're helping those who are marginalized, it is leading in love to those who we think are our enemies that will actually change the world. I've said this for many weeks now. Micro efforts matter. Micro efforts matter, and they are the thing that can change the whole system. Listen, we don't believe that. We don't believe that love can change systems. We don't believe, if we believe that, I think that we would live differently. But we don't. We just believe that hate is going to stop hate. Violence is going to stop violence, isn't it? I mean, surely at some point, if we kill more of them than they kill of us, we will win. And I'm telling you, that is the antichrist way to live. When we move and take care of, first of all, and listen, first of all, it's taking care of those who are marginalized. We move to those who are being pushed out of society. That's where we spend most of our time. But at the same time, we can actually love our enemies with micro efforts of love that can hopefully in the end of the day change the systems. Are you with me? So go and do likewise. Let's go to the next one. It's Dr. John Kilgallen that wrote this. And he said by Luke's verse 9, he suggests that there's no justification without love of neighbor. Without that love, the Pharisee of the parable could only be described as one of those who think they are just, right? They just think they're just, but they're not living in the way that the divine has called us to live. Look at the last one here. What then is the point of the parable? The point is Luke's. There is no justification before God without love of neighbor. Are you with me? There is no justification before God. Like if there is a higher power, if there is a divine, if there is a creator, if there is God, then the heart of God is to take care of everyone around us. The heart of God is to find those, especially those who are hurting, and to walk alongside. Okay, so how does that work? Well, here's how it works. SNAP benefits are being cut because there's a government shutdown, because there's a government takeover, and we're going into times where so like we are despising people in our government. We're despising people that they're deciding and deeming are not worthy of being able to feed their families. And so what do? Well, there's no justification if we just show up here and we just preach pretty words and sing pretty songs and just act like we're better than other people, unless I kind of feel like maybe what we should do is buy a bunch of groceries and give it to people that are losing SNAP benefits. All right. See, I did that whole thing. The whole sermon was to say that. That was all introduction, to say, hey, there are people that are losing their ability to eat. Okay? So it's not, and listen, I know I'm preaching to the choir, mostly like all of you will believe in this, but here's the thing. What we need to do right now is we need to rally around those, first of all, especially those who are being cut off. And I mean like literally cut off from resources. So, and like a lot of my friends have said, being hungry is not a moral failure. And all these people in the government, especially those who claim Jesus, that's what makes me so sick about it. It's like all these, are the kids out of here? Where all these a-holes that call themselves Christians are saying that, like, well, you get off your SNAP, that'll teach you to work. Listen, the people that I know that aren't SNAP work their asses off. So miss me with your, oh, well, that'll teach you. Shut up. Shut up. You're the Pharisee in the story. I get so mad at Christian churches. They're not. I mean, they are. But it's like they're not Christ-like because we're not. Listen, what do we go and do likewise? What we do likewise is we pick up the people who are hurting. We feed the people who are hungry. We clothe the people who are naked. I don't know any other way to be church other than to live that thing out as radically as we possibly can. So here's what we're going to do. We've got Andrea especially is working to put together all kinds of different resources. We're going to keep on, sending that out and getting people help as much as we can. But one of the things we do every Saturday and every Sunday morning at this place, right out of that kitchen, these tables are always set up because they give a free breakfast to everybody that needs it Saturday and Sunday morning. And then they also, if they have any groceries, they pack up grocery sacks and they let people take. They also have dog food and cat food and stuff like that for people's pets. So here's what we're going to do, all right? To go and do likewise, here's what we're going to do. To love our neighbor, we're going to, every Sunday, I want you to bring canned goods, peanut butter, stuff that doesn't have to have a can opener. You know what I'm talking about. Pop lids, stuff like that. Anything that you can get your hands on, if you have it at your home or if you can go buy it, we're bringing groceries every week from now on. All right? Are you with me? Like that's so bare minimum, right? But that's where we're going to start. And then if you want to bring money and give money to the breakfast at Southern Hills, you can do that. You can go to Giveify and just put in the memo, it says like tithe, and then it says like other, and you hit other and just put Southern Hills breakfast or something like that. If you want to give money to them, we'll get it to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our best right now in this tiny little community, because I believe with all my heart that we have within us the ability to take care of a lot of people. And let me just say this, and I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but there are people in our community that are on SNAP. Okay? There are people in our community. I'm not talking about Edmond or Yukon or Midwest City or Oklahoma City. I'm talking about in Simplicity. So we will take care of those who are being cut off. All right? And I know we're not like 2,000 people strong, but look, some of us have some privilege and some of us have some resources. And if you can't bring a whole bag of groceries, you can bring a couple of things that can go in a bag of groceries. You can bring $10 or something like that. You can keep on giving to the vision here so that we can also give more to Southern Hills and to the different places that are around that are food banks and stuff like that. We can do Pivot. Maybe we need to up our time at Pivot more than just once a month. Leslie, don't freak out. But I'm just saying we might have to do some things, because here's the thing. Right now, what is the go and do likewise for us? It's feeding the hungry. Are you with me? So the story here is we can sit around and think like, oh man, I'm so glad we're not a Christian nationalist church. Are you with me? We can feel pretty righteous about ourselves. Man, thank God that we're not like that church down there that, whew. Are you with me? I'd rather just not even pray. Literally, I'd rather us not even ever pray again if we're going to feed people who are hungry. That's what I want to do. Are you with me? I don't care if we sing another worship song, preach another sermon. Who cares about that? As I keep on going longer and longer. Anyway. Man, it's hot up here. So, what's the go and do likewise? I'm looking in the camera. I don't do this. Go feed some people who are hungry. And quit praying. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. Grace and peace.